Nigeria's electricity distribution companies reported a total system collapse on Thursday, causing widespread blackouts across Africa's biggest economy.
Why do we have one national grid? You generate everything, you put to the grid. You can't store electricity, you know that.
For those of you that are not in band A, you are definitely in band G. Band G is generator.
For decades, Nigeria, Africa's economic giant, has stumbled in the dark. The country's power supply has endured roughly 232 collapses in the last 14 years. In the past 5 years, the nation's power grid has collapsed 40 times, twice partially and 38 times completely. This year alone, Nigeria witnessed 6 grid collapses. With each blackout, millions of lives from bustling cities to rural homes are thrown into disarray.
When the woman comes to give birth here, it's very difficult for us because we don't get light. We are using torch light. So that day I'm very stressful because of that torch light. Using torch light, I'm pressing. So even giving the injection without a light, you will see it difficult to us.
The question isn't if the lights will fail again, but when. Leaving no room for doubt that this is not an accident, but a symptom of a system in crisis. And at the heart of this crisis lies a simple, sobering truth: a lack of political will to fix the problem. Here's what you should know. Nigeria's declining oil revenue in the 1980s prompted the government to consider restructuring its economy.
At first, people said that it was, it was because it was called NEPA, and everybody was bundled inside one, and then it's too big, nobody can do it, and so we needed to privatize, and we privatized, and where are we? And they said, oh no, it's not that one. What the minister just said, that is privatization, is infrastructure deficit. We don't have enough generating plants, we don't have this, and so from the time of President Obasanjo, a lot of money was poured into the system. Where are we?
Privatization, including the National Electric Power Authority, NEPA, became a key focus. The Babangida administration sought World Bank assistance, which included privatization as a condition. This led to the 1988 Technical Committee on Privatization and Commercialization, the TCPC, highlighting the issue. Despite delays across multiple governments, the 1999 Public Enterprises Decree finally targeted NEPA for privatization. In 2013, President Goodluck Jonathan oversaw the transition of NEPA to the Power Holding Company of Nigeria, PHCN.
And so they now said, oh, well, maybe it's not that. The problem is the law. Because that there's an aspect of the Constitution that says that you cannot do anything if you don't come back. And then we said, okay, fine. And we amended the law. And then we have the Electricity Act 2023.
It's been over a decade since Nigerians were promised a brighter future as a result of this privatization. More electricity, reliable supply, all meant to boost the nation. Those promises have been nothing but empty words. Instead of progress, blackouts have become routine, with over 140 national grid collapses post-privatization. Back in 2020, an outraged Senate President Ahmed Lawan demanded a change while addressing the Senate. Senators responded timidly. Instead of bold reform, they called for band-aid measures like crisis funding and another round of investigations. The government, meanwhile, remained caught in a web of its own making. After all, President Muhammadu Buhari had acknowledged in 2017 that privatization has failed, but he feared the consequences of undoing it. So, Why does the grid collapse? The power grid is a complex system designed to operate within specific limits. Exceeding these limits in terms of voltage or frequency destabilizes the system, causing widespread power outages. Think of it like traffic. Too much demand, not enough lanes, or an accident can clog the whole system. Same with electricity. If power plants can't keep up or something breaks, the grid fails. Gas shortages, vandalism, fires, technical faults, and even deliberate power cuts, any of these can send Nigeria's grid into darkness.
On a daily basis, the population of Nigeria is increasing. We are adding 24,329 lives into Nigeria on a daily basis. Every hour, 1,019 children are born in this country. The infrastructure, just like the Honorable Minister spoke to earlier, of 1960, 63, 70, are still everywhere within our power system.
With a population of over 200 million people, Nigeria barely scrapes by on less than 5,000 megawatts of official power, even though individuals desperately generate 8 times that on their own.
At University College Ibadan, the hospital was cut off because they couldn't pay their bills. And then if you cut them off, so the mortuaries cannot function, you cannot do operations, you cannot do anything. So where exactly are we?
This crisis is costing the nation a staggering $29 billion according to the International Monetary Fund. Grid failures don't just hurt abstract ideas like the economy. Of course, businesses lose money and livelihoods are jeopardized, but critically, hospitals grapple with failing life support machines, putting patients in life and death situations. Citizens who are constantly plunged into darkness lose safety and security. The very fabric of daily life is frayed by a power supply that is never reliable. Already, many Nigerian businesses have collapsed under the weight of inflation and currency devaluation.
Hospitals are breaking down. Businesses are not moving. Kids are crying. You can imagine in a week, last week we only had like 3 hours. For one whole week, food gets spoiled, people are crumbling. Diesel is almost 2,000 naira. And you see people burn diesel every day.
From the wealthy to those struggling to survive, the impact of a constantly collapsing power grid is so severe that recently it reached a tragicomic point when women in Rivers State were driven to protest, claiming that the lack of electricity is harming their marriages, a situation that highlights the absurdity of a system that has left even basic needs unmet. This problem is not new, but the scale is staggering. Nationwide blackouts are crippling the country, despite skyrocketing energy bills and broken government promises. There's no end in sight.
I place the blame squarely on the government. The government has the primary responsibility of managing the electricity market, of formulating policies and implementing policies for the benefit of the market. So the blame 100% to the government.
Officials admit that the system is faltering, with power generation plummeting. They've offered the usual excuses and pledged action, but Nigerians have heard it all before.
In Nigeria, we have the best talent. We all go to Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge. We're the best in class. And we come back to Nigeria, we hold leadership position, and yet we don't have light.
So, is there a solution? Industry experts pin their hopes on a SCADA system, claiming it could finally curb the nation's relentless blackouts. Think of SCADA as the eyes and ears of the power grid, allowing operators to track problems in real time. Even the former Power Minister, Abubakar Aliyu, promised urgent action to install this critical monitoring system. But as a consumer advocate pointed out, you can't fix a broken system with software alone. Nigeria's grid is like a decades-old crumbling taxi held together with rust and hope. Outdated equipment from the 1960s means operators are flying blind. The bottom line, SCADA could be a lifeline, but it's no miracle cure. Nigeria needs a grid overhaul, not just a software upgrade. The real question is, will the government invest in a future where the lights stay on?
The oxygen of the power sector is cash, liquidity, no money, no power. It's just that simple.
There is no joy in seeing the people of this nation shoulder burdens that should have been shared years ago. I wish today's difficulties did not exist, but we must endure if we have to reach the good side of our future.
Decades of promises and half measures have proven only one thing. Nigeria's leaders lack the resolve to prioritize the power sector. While everyday Nigerians stumble in the dark, the wealthy insulate themselves with generators. This indifference suggests a shameful reality, a culture where chronic blackouts are accepted, failure is normalized, while those responsible face no consequences.
When we come to the power sector in Nigeria, the assessment is not far-fetched. Very obviously, we can see what the different dispensations and different administrations have tried to do with respect to augmenting power distribution, power generation, power transmission in Nigeria. But if I'm supposed to speak for a majority of the Nigerian people, the citizenry and the populace, I would want to rate the power sector performance in this dispensation 1 out of 10. I think, let us be fair to say, they have just performed average.
Persistent national grid collapses stem from a system that shields politicians from the consequences of their ineptitude. In contrast to developed nations, where accountability is expected, Nigeria's lack of punitive measures for infrastructure failures has normalized the negligence and created a disastrous cycle of unreliable power.
A nation that has comparative advantage in gas finds it difficult to give gas to the power station, and we're all expecting El Dorado. It's not going to happen.
This electricity crisis won't resolve itself. It demands bold leadership and a fundamental shift in priorities.
Let's call a spade a spade. In South Africa, in Egypt, in Algeria, in any of these places where you find constant supply of power, is primarily because of the fact that industries are consuming the power, not residential consumption. 80% of power produced in developed nations are consumed by industries. Rather, we are looking for power for residential consumption, and yet we want to grow our GDP. It's mission impossible.
Politicians must now move beyond empty rhetoric and take concrete steps, urgently modernize the grid, invest in sustainable energy, and institute a rigorous system of accountability for those who fail to ensure reliable power.
When you look at inflation in Nigeria, a lot of the inflation, that I said, is largely structural. Power is one of it. And the situation of not having electricity in Africa, just generally, makes no sense. You can't develop in the dark, you can't industrialize in the dark, kids can't learn in the dark, vaccine and so on cannot go on in the dark. Basically, Africa is tired of being in the dark. And I think Nigeria is also tired.
To break free from this cycle of dysfunctionality, the Nigerian political class must demonstrate the resolve to confront these challenges head-on. Only through decisive action and a genuine commitment to reform can Nigeria hope to ensure a reliable and sustainable electricity supply for its citizens.